For the first time in 2 decades, Congress is holding public hearings for an impeachment inquiry into a U.S. president.
Career diplomats Bill Taylor and George Kent gave televised testimony today as part of the Democratic House-led inquiry focused on Trump's dealings with Ukraine, specifically his request for Ukraine to investigate potential corruption by Joe Biden. This request prompted a whistleblower in the intelligence community to file a complaint. After President Trump spoke with Ukraine's president in July, Taylor said Trump had a conversation with Gordon Sondland, the U.S. ambassador to the European Union. Taylor testified that one of Sondland's aides asked him what the president thought of Ukraine.
Mr. Sondland responded that President Trump cares more about the investigations of Biden.
Democrats claim Trump abused his power by pushing an investigation into a political rival. Most Republicans say the president didn't do anything that rises to the level of impeachment. After hearing the diplomat's testimony, lawmakers voted against a Republican motion to subpoena the whistleblower to testify. The vote was split along party lines, 13-9. Republicans have contended that the whistleblower is a central figure in the inquiry and should take the stand. Democrats say the person's testimony is now irrelevant since the call was released, and that his or her identity should be protected for their safety. President Trump himself said he wasn't planning to watch the hearings.
It's a witch hunt, it's a hoax. I'm too busy to watch it.
The public hearings are set to continue into next week.
The U.S. Attorney General today announced a plan to fight gun violence nationwide. William Barr said efforts to pass gun legislation in the wake of deadly mass shootings have been derailed. He blamed the lack of action on impeachment proceedings happening in Washington. Barr said the administration's 5-pronged framework will enable the government, together with state and local partners,
to fight gun crime in ways that fit the local circumstances and will leverage the power of the federal law, the federal courts, and federal agencies.
Barr made the remarks in Memphis in a crowd full of law enforcement officials. He says the proposal laid out in September will move forward now. It's called Project Guardian. The Department of Homeland Security today proposed a list of changes to restrict how asylum seekers can get work permits. The proposal seeks to prevent people abusing the system for economic gain.
The changes would make the matter of obtaining work permits a more discretionary process and would exclude certain categories of asylum seekers from getting work permits. For other categories of asylum seekers, it would simply delay the process of getting the right to work. The department says it proposed the rule changes in order to limit fake asylum claims. The rules are not meant to affect legitimate claims, but to discourage people from abusing the system. The regulations would make it harder for those who have committed crimes from obtaining authorization, including those who crossed into the United States illegally before making their asylum claim. The department is allowing comments on the proposed changes to regulations for 60 days after the document is published in the Federal Register.
Fed Chairman Powell testified today before a Congress committee and indicated that the Fed does not currently plan to lower interest rates. NTD's Miguel Moreno has more on Powell's testimony.
Powell said the U.S. economy is in good shape.
There's a lot to like about this rare place of the 11th year of an expansion.
He said GDP increased at an annual pace of 1.9% in this year's third quarter. With inflation levels nearing the Fed's 2% objective, Powell said it's likely the Fed will keep the interest rate where it's at.
We do think monetary policy is in a good place, but we're going to be watching very carefully incoming data.
President Trump went over the record rises in stock market indices a day before Powell's testimony and criticized the Fed for not lowering interest rates earlier. If lowered, the president said those numbers could have risen by 25%. He also brought up dropping the interest rate into the negatives, which would push people to spend and invest. But Powell said the Fed isn't influenced by politicians and objected to the idea of negative interest rates.
Our economy is in a strong position. We have growth. We have a strong consumer sector. We have inflation that's a bit below target. So the very, very low and even negative rates that we see around the world would not be appropriate for our economy.
The Fed has cut rates 3 times this year. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
Facebook says it has shut down billions of fake accounts this year. 5.4 billion accounts were removed. The company says as many as 5% of its monthly users are fake, despite efforts to catch fake accounts the moment they're created. Even after the cleanup, the social media giant says that millions of fake accounts likely remain. And protesters in Hong Kong have blocked all entrances to a major university in anticipation of another offensive by police. NTD's Paul Greeny reports from the Chinese University of Hong Kong.
Pro-democracy protesters were staked out the Chinese University of Hong Kong Tuesday night and Wednesday morning after an intense standoff with police.
It was already very, very intense. Many people got injured. Professors were terrified.
Protests have been ongoing for 5 months, but there are some things that make these protests unusual. On Wednesday, the CCP ordered all Hong Kong-based mainland students back to the mainland. The police also did not respond when protesters strategically blocked the main highway near the university.
I think it is weird that they retreated and let us take over the bridge, using it to transport any maybe soldiers or more supplies.
The police left the scene late Tuesday night local time after firing tear gas and rubber bullets at protesters.
So as you can see here, the students have been collecting the tear gas canisters and the rubber bullets. The police have said that over 1,500 tear gas canisters and 1,300 rubber bullets were fired within only a 3-hour period here at the university yesterday.
It's unclear why police targeted the protests at the university. Protests were happening in other parts of the city at the same time. Some see the university as a symbol of the pro-democracy movement. It houses Hong Kong's internet exchange that facilitates much of the island's internet traffic.
It's a campus in the university. How can you do this to our students?
Students and lecturers lamented the Chinese Communist Party's encroachment on the region, which many see as the root cause of the tensions.
We want to keep the Hong Kong way of living, the Hong Kong way of running a place, running a government.
As of Wednesday morning, protesters were still preparing for the police to return. Reporting by Paul Greeny, NTD News.
The chairman of the U.S. Senate Foreign Relations Committee says he wants the Senate to pass legislation supporting Hong Kong protesters. Violent confrontations between police and demonstrators have been escalating to a new level, and fears are growing as to what may come next.
Republican Senator Jim Risch is the co-sponsor of the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act, which would place Hong Kong's special treatment by the United States under tighter scrutiny. The House of Representatives unanimously passed the bill in mid-October, but it hasn't been scheduled for a vote by the full Senate.
And we want it moved. Tomorrow we are actually having a meeting on trying to get some scheduling moved on that. The world needs to see that the United States will stand up and say, look, this is wrong. We stand with the people of Hong Kong.
Police in Hong Kong battled pro-democracy protesters at several university campuses on Wednesday, in sometimes savage clashes, as parts of the city were paralyzed, including Hong Kong's financial district, which was tear-gassed for a third day running. Those flare-ups occurred a day after police shot an unarmed protester at close range. Risch and fellow Senator Marco Rubio, the lead Senate sponsors of the Hong Kong bill, are set to meet Wednesday with Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell to discuss the possibility of getting floor time for a vote on the bill.
It is vitally important that the United States Senate take up and pass the Hong Kong Human Rights and Democracy Act. We have delayed long enough. We have waited long enough. That act should come to the floor and it should be voted upon.
In a speech on the Senate floor Tuesday, McConnell said Beijing's insatiable thirst for control was undermining Hong Kong's autonomy.
I'm eager to continue working with colleagues such as Senator Risch, Senator Graham, Senator Rubio, and others toward a strong and procedurally workable solution.
The legislation has 37 Republican and Democratic co-sponsors in the 100-member Senate. A number of senators expressed deep concern and support for the pro-democracy protesters in Hong Kong.
Up next, NTD's China expert says China is trying to use the U.S.-China trade war to silence the Trump administration. He says this is part of a larger strategy to oppose President Trump. More on that when we return.
Our investigative reporters at the Epoch Times have spent 18 months uncovering the biggest political scandal in modern history. We connected the dots around Spygate, the actions by Obama-era officials against Trump's 2016 presidential campaign. Join me on Declassified as we bring you up-to-date developments on this unfolding scandal.
Viewers have described China Uncensored like The Daily Show, but about China.
At the beginning, I was super excited when I got 500 views, and now the show's grown to about 500,000 subscribers on YouTube. One episode reached 7.9 million people. I'm a little freaked out that that many people have seen my face. In 5 years, I see China Uncensored as the sole source of edutainment worldwide.
Why are Hong Kong police still escalating their force? NTD's China expert says this isn't just about Hong Kong. Apart from trying to take the city fully under its totalitarian control, the Chinese regime could be using Hong Kong to take down President Trump. Since the protests started, U.S. officials, including Vice President Pence and State Secretary Pompeo, have publicly condemned police violence and shown support for the protesters' effort for democracy, but not President Trump. NTD's China expert says the president may be holding back to show goodwill ahead of the trade negotiation, but the Chinese regime may take advantage of his inaction to take him down. On Monday, the use of force by Hong Kong police reached a new level after police opened fire at a protester.
So this move by the Chinese Communist Party is an attack that puts Trump in a very awkward situation. It's almost a stab in the back.
He said if Trump speaks out about Hong Kong, then the Chinese regime can label it ill will toward the trade negotiations. And if the trade negotiations don't succeed, U.S. farmers will pay the price.
It will impact support for Trump in the agricultural states as well as his support among the American people.
But if the president chooses to play along with the Chinese regime and remain silent on Hong Kong, it may not bode well for the leader of the free world.
But in the U.S., many people care about democracy, human rights, and the rule of law. If you sacrifice human rights and rule of law in exchange for trade, Trump will lose many voters as well. And the Democrats are already good at attracting voters like this. He will face challenges from Congress as well as from the American society.
In addition, it remains to be seen whether the Chinese regime will truly implement the structural changes Trump is negotiating.
They are not trying to comply with your rules. They only want to bribe you and keep you silent while they devour Hong Kong, and then wait for you to step down and then keep on infiltrating your Congress and your party. Once you step down, their time will come.
He says they want both a trade deal with the U.S. but also to be left alone about Hong Kong. He added that the real solution to the situation in Hong Kong is ultimately in the hands of the U.S., whether the U.S. can see through the trap or not. Reporting by Penny Zhou, NTD News. A former surgeon who used to help the Chinese regime perform live organ harvesting said the West should stop feeding the mad tiger of the Chinese Communist Party.
The person's heart was still beating when Uyghur's doctor Anvakdal Dibagda took out the liver and kidneys in 1995. 20 years later, he became one of the most important witnesses of the profit-seeking forced organ harvesting by the Chinese regime, performed not just on death row prisoners, but also civilians and prisoners of conscience. This June, an independent people's tribunal in London called China a criminal state, where people continue to be medically tested and killed for their organs. Speaking to us at a seminar by the Adelstam Foundation in Sweden, Bagda said the West needs to act.
Stop cooperating with Chinese medical society. Refuse to accept that medical articles from Chinese surgeons. By doing this, the world will let the Chinese doctor know that what you are doing is wrong.
He said it will save a lot of human lives.
If they don't do anything to stop Chinese, what they are doing, then it means they are feeding a mad tiger. When the tiger become huge, then you cannot handle it.
Dr. Benjamin Kahn barely escaped himself. A member of the persecuted spiritual group Falun Gong, he was imprisoned and tortured in a Chinese labor camp. He was also given an overly comprehensive physical examination in the labor camp. Dr. Kahn found it strange.
It includes an ECG. I know because I'm a doctor myself. They were checking all my organs. At the time, I was thinking, we've been through so much torture because of them. They don't even treat us as humans. Why all of a sudden do they care about our health and give us physical exams? And I didn't even get the exam results.
Last month, the UK Parliament introduced a bill that would punish citizens for traveling abroad to have a transplant where organs were removed without donors' consent. Similar bills now exist in countries including Spain, Italy, Belgium, Norway, and Israel.
What is happening is that there is clearly a genocide going on in China, and organ harvesting is one of the methods in the genocide, and this is becoming alarming, and we see clear signs of what was happening in Germany in the 30s and in the 40s, and I think this development should concern everyone.
The Edelstam Foundation is named after Caroline Edelstam's grandfather, Swedish diplomat Harold Edelstam, who helped hundreds of Jewish people escape from Nazi Germany. The foundation opened its nomination for the 2020 Human Rights Prize on Tuesday. Reporting by Hong Yan, Penny Zhou, NTD News.
Up next, San Leandro, California prepares for America Recycles Day. Residents and a recycling specialist talk about what makes the day important and what can and cannot be recycled. More on that after the break.
The lasting beauty of traditional oil painting. Realistic style, brilliant, moving, expressive. 2019 NTD Television International Competition for Figure Painting in Oil, guided by truthfulness, kindness, and beauty. We invite you to join us on our journey back to traditional art. Gold Prize Award of $10,000. For more detail, please visit oilpainting.ntdtv.com.
This season, take an incredible journey through 5,000 years of culture with Shen Yun. Discover why people are calling Shen Yun a visual feast, a pleasure to the ear, an epic tale, a must-see. Shen Yun, an all-new production every year.
November 15th is America Recycles Day. NTD's Eiling Eng has the story on how one city in California is preparing for the day.
Residents in the city of San Leandro are dropping off their unwanted recyclable materials to this community center. Every year, the city of San Leandro hosts an event. Tanya Richardson, a solid waste and recycling specialist, says it's a day to highlight the importance of keeping recyclable items out of landfill.
Batteries should never go into landfill. They can leach their acid, get to the water sources that, wherever the landfills are, and that can be dangerous for the environment.
They're also taking medication, mercury thermometers, audio and videotapes, and fluorescent lights. In addition, they're taking techno trash, defined as small handheld devices like cell phones, CDs, and MP3 players that can be taken apart for recyclable parts.
We want to make recycling accessible and easy for our residents. And so for us, it's important to continue to have face-to-face contact with our residents, to answer questions.
Locals put their unwanted items in the labeled bins and workers sort them out for further disposal. They will not take hazardous waste like sharp objects, car batteries, paint, pesticides, or other household chemicals. Laptops are larger, so they are considered to be e-waste, and won't be taken at this event either, but they will accept them at other e-waste events.
I brought in some fluorescent bulbs that I had laying around for a while and some medication. I'm glad the program's around for people to do this. I mean, I see that there's a lot of people here.
I brought household batteries, old medicines, and fluorescent bulbs. I come here every year, and this is a great program.
The event at this center was open for 4 hours. Other events across the nation can be found on the America Recycles Day website.
People can also look online to find the closest recycling center near them. Eileen Ng, NTD News, San Leandro, California.
Venice's historic St. Mark's Basilica was flooded for the 6th time in 1,200 years today after one of the highest tides in the city's history.
St. Mark's Square was submerged by more than 3 feet of water. One man thought it was the perfect occasion to work on his swimming style. Wearing a pair of swimming shorts, the man could be seen swimming across the famous tourist attraction using a front crawl before standing up and smiling to himself as he looked around at his surroundings. The high water level is a big tourist attraction. Everyone has fun, but it is a real problem for Venetians. Venice's mayor said the basilica, the most famous landmark of the lagoon city, had suffered grave damage, but no details were available on the state of its mainly Byzantine interior, famous for its rich mosaics. He also declared a state of emergency, warning of the severe damage to the city. Workers rushed to save wooden furniture inside St. Mark's Basilica after it was flooded by exceptionally high water that peaked at 6.1 feet, just short of the record set in 1966. Venice is a very beautiful city, and it becomes a very special place when the water level is high. Many tourists came to visit the city. For them, sinking thigh-deep into water is just one of the city's attractions.
Hard to look fashionable in Venice when you're slopping around in the rain, but like I said, it's still a beautiful experience being in Venice.
Nearly every home appeared to have floodwaters lapping at the entrance. Officials said 2 people have died in the flooding. The worst may not be over yet, as more bad weather is forecast over the next few days.
Up next, paragliders are taking to the skies again in Iraq's Mosul, 2 years after the city's liberation from the ISIS terrorist group. The team hopes to increase the number of pilots who can compete internationally. More on that when we return. Paragliders are taking to the skies again in the Iraqi city of Mosul. This comes 2 years after the city's liberation from the Islamic State terrorist group. Up, up, and away. For some of the trainees flying today, it is their very first time. This session is part of a paragliding team's no-cost offer, where they hope to spread the joys of paragliding throughout the region.
Then we learned step by step until we came to fly over here.
The team Sky Knights hopes to increase the number of pilots who can participate in local and international championships. One of the trainers, Khalid Al-Awand, became a paratrooper in 1989. Now he is teaching the new and old generation the techniques of paragliding.
Thanks to God, we were able to graduate pilots and take them 490 yards high, which is the highest peak we have here in the Mar Matai monastery area.
The group of trainers and trainees picked a place almost 19 miles northeast of Mosul to jump from. An ancient monastery is located on top of the mountain. Another trainer says he feels like a bird when he's paragliding.
You hear nothing but the wind whistling, and it is very beautiful. To me, it sounds like a musical instrument. It is amazing.
This is the third free course offered by Sky Knights since the liberation of Mosul from the Islamic State terrorist group in 2017. And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer.